when it comes to programming, we can't really get much further without the use of variables. So variables are an intricate part of programming, and we're going to use them from here on out pretty much in every program we create. So what is a variable? Well, a variable, simply put, is used to store information. It's used to store data, particular information about whatever program you are creating. So for example, let's say I have a game and someone has created a character for my particular game. You might ask yourself, what particular information do we need to keep track of for this specific character? And probably the main and easiest one to talk about is when I create this character, or the user creates this character, they're probably going to give this character a name. So maybe that name is Joe, or maybe it's Jack, or maybe it's the old reliable Bob. The point is, I don't know what name they're going to choose. They have an infinite amount of options to choose from. However, I do know that I need to keep track of this information. I need to store this information in my code so that I can use it. So let's talk about variables. That's what variables are for. Variables are used to store information. So you can think of a variable like a box that's ready to store information. Just like in real life, boxes store things. So back to my example here with this character that's been created and the name that's been given to this character, I need to store this name because I need to create code that uses this character's name. All right, so here is my variable. Now variables have a name. We give our variables a name, and we typically give them a name related on what they're storing. So this variable is going to store the name of the character that was just created. So a good name for this variable would be player name. Notice the non-capitalization on the first letter is intentional. Variable names always start with a lowercase. Not always, but for now, they always do. If you have a descriptive variable name, such as player name, such as one word joined with another, we don't put spaces in between these two words. Instead, we write them as one single word, but we capitalize the first letter of the second word that we're joining. This is called camel case, and this is how you create correct names for your variables. So here is a box. It is called player name. It's obviously going to be used to store the name of a character. So when the character is created, they have chosen the name Bob, and I don't know they're going to choose Bob, but whatever this name they've chosen is, we are going to store it inside the variable. So I don't need to know what name they've chosen. I just need to keep track of the name of my variable, because all I need to do is call this name, call the name of my variable, and out pops the information that's being stored. In this case, Bob was being stored because that was the character's name. So here's my lovely variable. It's keeping track of some information, and I don't need to remember this information. I can clear my head, I can forget about it, because all I need to do is reference the variable, and the variable itself is storing the name. I know that's a lot to stomach, so let's slow it down here. I'll show you quickly in code how you would create a variable. Now there's different types of variables, and we're going to create variables under the partial. So if you go to your program, you should see this public partial class. That means we're going to create variables within these two braces. I like to put them right at the top and give myself some space. Now there's different types of variables we can create. Let's keep it simple. In this particular case, I was storing a word, right? I was storing letters, not numbers. I was just storing a name, so a word or letters. Anytime you're storing words or letters, you're going to use a string variable. Strings store letters and words. Okay? Now, once you've specified what type of variable you're going to create, you got to give your variable a name. And in this particular example, we used this as the variable name, which was a pretty good name. So I'm defining which type of variable I want to create. Then I'm giving my variable a name, and I can put a semicolon. So this line of code is the equivalent of me creating a box that's getting ready to store information. This box is empty. We haven't stored anything yet, just like this box is empty. I don't know what the player is going to choose for their name, so that's why this box is empty, and I leave it as that. But in the rare case, or the specific case that you do know, or you do have a variable where you know the value is right off the start, you can give your variable a value. So if I knew for sure that they were going to use Bob as the name, I could say that player name is equal to Bob. Now notice the string. Anytime you're dealing with words and letters, you put that information in quotations. You cannot just say Bob. You'll get an error. So use those quotations. So this line of code has created a variable with a value already in it. Bob is already in it. But if I want to create a variable without a starting value, that is perfectly okay as well. I'm just going to create the box and I'm going to leave it empty. This is called declaring a variable, but giving it an initial value is called initializing a variable. Not too important right now, but hopefully you can see the difference. In the next video, we'll talk about how to get that information from the user and store it.